Hey y'all, Toad here. Look, as a preface to this video, I want to make a point. You'll see a lot of times watching my videos that I have done things like remove the guard system off this saw, and you'll see other times where some of these stock guards and features and whatnot of these tools have been removed. Now, they've been removed for my convenience. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's the right thing to do, but I'm certainly going to tell you, make sure you know what you're doing. Watch your hands. Make other tools to push wood through spinning blades. Because if you haven't been doing this for a while, and even if you have, this will mess you up. So be real careful when you watch YouTube videos. You buy new tools and whatnot, read the manuals, check out all the safety features, and if you decide, like I do, that you need to get in close and remove a safety feature, do be extra careful, okay? Let's get on with the video. Hey y'all, Toad here. Well, back in the shop, I have gotten a bunch of requests to continue the beehive making videos using the pallets and whatnot. So here we go. Here's going to be another step. Now, some of the pallet wood ends up being like this when you get it. This has just been cut out of the pallet. I've run it through a planer and got it down to just, pretty sizes. And you end up with more than one thickness. So I don't cut them all to one thickness. I just go ahead and plane them down until they're decent looking, and then put them off to the side, because you just don't know what you're going to be building out of them right away. So I'll plane them down as I make the parts. Now, where we are on this one is I've planed these down to 3/8 and then cut them up to length and cut them up to width. And what we're making this now, let me see if I can. All right, here's a assembled. This is a frame. And what we're going for now is the side pieces, more specifically this notch right here. That notch. Now, there's a whole lot of ways to do it. And let me preface this. This is important because I have had some people ask the question. Is it easier to buy the frames or build the frames? Well, just like anything else, it's easier to buy them. The better question is it cheaper to build the frames or buy the frames? Man, the frames are like $1.25 a piece. Okay? I can't answer that question for you, because if you're just talking about raw dollars, time, as opposed to the money spent, pretty much it's kind of hard to compete with the factory bought frames, because again, at $1 a piece, for a 10 frame hive, you're looking at what, $15, give or take, just for the frames. And how long does it take you to do it this way? Well, I'm using a reasonable group of woodworking tools. Not everybody has a table saw with a dado blade. Not everybody has a surface planer. Can you do all this without it? Sure. I think it really comes down to the individual. If you enjoy woodworking, which for the most part I do enjoy the challenge, and because you enjoy it, it's recreational time to do it, then yeah, you're of course saving almost, with the exception of nails and glue, you're saving just about everything. So, it's going to be up to you whether this is worth it to you or not. Now, let me get this camera moved, and I'll show you what we're doing now. Okay, this is how it's set up, and I've got a dado blade in here, and it's set for 7/8 of an inch. If you're not familiar with a dado blade, it's nothing more than a large stacked group of blades that you can, the more you put in, the wider it gets. There you go. And what we're going to do, I'll show you with a piece that's already cut. We're going to run along the fence. Of course, it's centered and everything, to the stop, which I just did by simply clamping my miter in the way, and then flip it over and do it again. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, you said you didn't mind that, so I don't want to hear it. Now, what you end up with is not a perfectly flat cut. It's got a little bit of a conical shape to it. And when you put the next piece on, it'll still make good contact. Now, there's some that'll say, okay, that little bitty non-flat area there could give space for mites. Or beetles, rather. And, okay, I haven't had that problem so far. I suppose if you wanted to, you could kind of angle this up and get a little bit more of a flat cut out of it. Yeah, I'm just not going to bother building a jig like that. If I was going to, make hundreds of these, fine. But the truth of the matter is, I'm going to make a whole bunch of them, and then I'm going to wait and see how they work. When I say a whole bunch, I mean a whole bunch of frames for the hives I've already got. About, I guess when I get done with this, I'll have 4 brood bodies, 10, 40. So I'm making about 40 frames in this fashion. Go through the year, see how it works. If it is a haven for beetles or all kinds of problems like that, I'll let you know. I don't think that's going to be a problem, though. But let me finish these up and we'll be right back. Okay. Now, I know this pretty much looks the same, and it is the same procedure. The only thing I've done differently is I've gone ahead and reduced the width of the dado blade down to 5/8 of an inch, because unlike, this one was 7/8, this end is 5/8. And it's the same procedure. In, cut, flip, in. So let me get them all done, and we'll move on. Okay, now, we've pretty much got our sides done, all the dado work, but there's one more step. This here has to end up looking like that. This, when the frames are all together, this space cutaway, see how it's smaller at the bottom end, that allows the bees to go from place to place to place, from frame to frame. Now, there's 2 ways you can do this as far as with a table saw that I know of. The way I do it is it's set up, if you can see that, the table saw is pretty much set up the way I do it. The miter is clamped there, so it can't move. There's an end block, just a scrap side sitting there, done to it. And what I do is turn the saw on, feed in one side, flip it over, and feed in the other side. But when you flip it over, be real careful, because you're going to have already cut away this side, and it's going to tend to want to move. So you really need to get down in this area and push that against your fence while just barely touching this part, pushing it more down so it can't chatter. But it will move if you let it. And then all I do once those cutters, and this is not perfect, you can see, is I just take it over to a sander and just smooth that out, sort of, kind of, and done. So that's pretty much it, y'all. That is pretty much it. Let's go ahead and throw one together. Hey, alright, welcome back. Well, where we are now is we've completed this cut, which it's pretty simple, really. I had to do 2 passes, ran it up, run it against the fence, run it up with the height set properly, and made that rabbit. But now, where we are now, sorry I'm a little bit behind on the video, is we're making these 2 notches. Right here and right here. And they're 3/8. And let me grab a side here. And you can see pretty much how they fit. Set them in. And there you go. So what I got to do is make 8 of those. The table is set. 1, 2, 1, flip it over, 2, end to end, 1, flip it over, 2. So 8 cuts. We'll get all those done. Be back in a minute. Okay. Now we've got the tops pretty much done. We used our 3/8 inch dado to make those cuts, and as you can see, now our top bar is pretty much done, and our sides slide right in there. And what I got going now is the bottoms, and I'm just taking a very tiny little bit off each side, and then it fits into the bottom. So we've almost got, you know, one bit done. We're getting there. It's a slow process, but let me get all the rest of these done and we'll cruise on to the next step. Alrighty, so now we're done with pretty much all of the dado work. That was the end of the bottom parts there, bottom of the frames. The last thing to do is on both the tops and the bottoms is to make the groove that runs the length that will allow the foundation to be snapped in. I use the plastic foundations. Here on this one you can see the groove right there, groove right there in the top and bottom. It's 1/4 of an inch deep, 3/16 of an inch wide. And I'm just going to use a regular saw blade, 2 passes the whole length, and we'll get that done. And hopefully when we come back, we'll start putting them together. Alright, what do you say we go ahead and put them together? Now, pretty much the way I do it, take a little glue, very little. I mean, you can see I'm not putting much on there at all. Grab a bottom, put it on there, slide it onto the top where you want it. Grab another one, other side, slide it on. Just kind of eyeball it, make sure it's, you know, all in one piece. That's funny. Make sure it's semi-straight. Trying to keep it in the camera for you. I'm used to working at a little bit bigger place, but I don't have a camera that has a wide enough angle lens. Again, just a little bit of glue. Put the other side on. Kind of manipulate it around. Get it where you want it. Just going to drill a pilot hole for the nail, right dead center. The reason I drill the pilot hole is because you're going from one grain direction to another, and I want that to go. I don't want the nail to wander. I want the nail to go right in, right where it needs to go, and straight. And I'm using these are 4D galvanized nails. 4D galvanized nails. Let me just go ahead and let me tap this one a few more times. It's not quite down there where it belongs. There we go. Then flip the whole thing over and just repeat the process. Now, like I said before, you know, there's a lot of people, and quite frankly, I'm one of them, who, you know, except for a few certain circumstances, like maybe you're somebody like me and just enjoys the challenge of trying to build something on their own. Maybe you like to thumb your nose at the at the commercial built stuff, regardless of what it is. Maybe you just really dig building your own stuff, and again, like me, maybe you're just you have a radio on, have a whatever television on, or maybe you're doing it with your family, kids. But to be honest with you, it's hard to recommend that somebody do this, because in raw dollars, as opposed to time, it's difficult to compete with the dollar or so it takes to buy one of these. Okay, now that being said, can it be done? Yeah, there it is. You can do it, and there's probably better ways, better techniques, whatnot out there. Will I build my own all the time? No. And let me just be honest with you. The reason I built mine here to start with is because I wanted to know how things were put together. If something breaks, I want to know how to fix it. If something goes wrong or breaks, I want to know that I can fix it. So while I may not build every frame that I ever need, in fact, I hope someday in the future to have quite a few beehives. Maybe I will buy more store-bought ones, but if they break or if I have a problem with them, I know how they go together. I can make parts. I can fix them. So to me, that alone is a good enough reason to go ahead and build your own. And if you want to be really cheap, actually, if you take away the time, like I said, you do it with family, you do it for fun, and you take time out of the factor, these cost me 4 dabs of glue and 4 nails, which is certainly cheaper than $1.50 a pop. So there's how the frames are. I'm going to try and continue this series, and I think the next thing I'm going to get into is probably going to be the hive bodies themselves. And by the way, for those of you who are curious, yeah, I will check the square of each one and then drop it into the hive body to dry. All right, y'all. Thanks a lot for your patience. Fair winds, and we'll see you next time around.